Okay, so first off, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It's been an absolutely wonderful, wonderful year. As I come into the close of the year, my wife is out shopping, so I thought I'd make a video. I've kind of been wanting to do this anyway. I'm a professional trader, professional trainer, just for trading, but it's going to be for the group. It's for the purpose of evolving people to greater purposes in life. The way I want to give back, thanks to, grateful for my mother, my late mother, who, gave me a brain, made me think about things, made me get books, made me study. I'm very grateful for my father and David for giving me the opportunity to actually go out and discover and find and make happen and apply the things in life to make success. And, through the variety of multiple millionaires, decamillionaires, centimillionaires that I've had the opportunity to meet, to have in my life, there's basically been one lesson, and that's consistency, persistence, and attitude, which will get us from one place to another. And so I actually wanted to share with one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had in my life. So this whole video is going to be based upon one of the greatest lessons. I'm going to read a chapter of Think and Grow Rich. The chapter is on persistence. It's evolving into a new pattern, a new way of living. See, there's one thing that I've given my daughter who's getting ready to move out. And I've given my daughter two gifts of life, okay? First one is I've taught her the importance of completing a task, okay? That's probably one of the few things that almost nobody does. Probably less than 5% of the population can complete a task regularly. It's something I've struggled with my entire life. And up to a few years ago, I've actually been able to apply some of this stuff. The second thing, after completing a task, is being persistent. And that's a big component of it. And I've taught her how to be persistent and how to work like hell to get whatever the hell she wants. And, between those three things, I don't think I could have taught my daughter anything else, I've taught her trust. I taught her a lot of different things. But the three most important thing is a good work ethic, which she can work through anything. I've given her how to complete tasks and how to stay persistent no matter what life throws at you, because life is always going to throw curves after curve after curve at you. And the only thing that you have to do is you have to maintain the control of your attitude, how you respond to it, and the choices that you have to continue. And that's the persistence. And there's an exercise. I've done this exercise several times with several groups. I've done it with just men. I've done it with men and women. So, and every time I've done this experiment, every time I've done this exercise, we've done it in different intervals. This would be my fifth time rather doing it. The fourth time was about a year and a half ago. Every single time I do this, I gain an amazing amount of results in my life over the next 90 to 180 days. So in the next 3 to 6 months, you'll get any results that you want, which is the best time of the year to start now, rather than waiting for the New Year's to arrive. I always like to start my New Year's resolutions, per se. I usually start them somewhere between the beginning and middle of November, which I've already started. Some of my New Year's resolutions have already bore fruit. So what it is, it's a 90-day challenge. And over these 90 days, you're going to do one simple thing, okay? You're going to go over Chapter 9. Now, you can either listen to me go through it, and I'm going to you guys are going to be so blessed. Not only am I going to give this entire training with the reading, but I'm also going to give you this same thing. If you email me, I'll give you the second one, which basically is me going twice as fast. So instead of spending 35 or 40 minutes, you can do it in 20 or 15 minutes. So we're talking about 15 minutes a day. You can listen to the Chapter 9, Think and Grow Rich of Persistence. Okay, so now here's what overachievers do. Overachievers will do this morning and at night. Basically burning into your brain the absolute things that have to happen, essentialness of persistence into your life. Morning and night, morning, night, morning, night, 90 days. So you get to hear this 180 times how important persistence is. So when you feel like giving up on your goal or your dream or, whatever you want to call it shouldn't be a dream or a goal. It should be something that you have an actual plan to ascertain or obtain into your life and realize its existence in your life. Absolutely important. 90-day challenge. At least listen to it. Better yet, listen once, read at night. Switch it up if it gets boring. So instead of doing listen in the morning, read at night, you can read in the morning, listen at night. And by doing just that little thing for 90 days straight. Now, it's not just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. They say 21 days to make a new habit. 30 days will blow past any belief barriers, blocks that you have. If you do it for 90 days, twice a day, you may end up doing it for the rest of the year. which, you know, you've spent a half an hour a day learning to stay after your goals and stay persistent in all areas of your life. I'm telling you, next year you will not be telling the same stories you told last year, which is my way of gauging if I'm growing or evolving or staying the same. Am I living the same? Am I still talking about things I'm going to do this year or next year or never? Am I going towards my goals? Am I going towards my achievements? Am I putting in the effort to get to where I want to be, or am I staying stagnant? And if I'm still telling the same stories as telling last year, what I'm going to do is read chapter 9. Persistence is essential. Let me open up to chapter 9. You can send me an email saying you want the chapter 9. Persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. The 8th step towards riches. Persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. Men who accumulate great fortunes are generally known as cold-blooded and sometimes ruthless. Often they are misunderstood. What they have is willpower, which they mix with persistence and place back on their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. Henry Ford has been generally misunderstood to be ruthless and cold-blooded. This misconception grew out of Ford's habit of following through in all of his plans with persistence. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. These few are the Fords, Carnegies, Rockefellers, and Edisons. There may be no heroic connotation of the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. The building of a fortune generally involves application of the entire 13 factors of this philosophy. These principles must be understood. They must be applied with persistence by all who accumulate money. If you are following this book with the intention of applying the knowledge it conveys, your first test as to the persistence will come when you begin to follow the 6 steps described in the 2nd chapter. Unless you are one of the 2 out of every 100 who already have a definite goal at which you are aiming and a definite plan for its attainment, you may read the instructions and then pass on with your daily routine and never comply with those instructions. The author is checking up with you at this point because the lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Moreover, experience with thousands of people has proved the lack of persistence is a weakness common to the majority of men. It is a weakness which may be overcome by effort. The ease with which lack of persistence may be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desires. The starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep that constantly in mind. Weak desires bring weak results. Just as a small amount of fire makes a small amount of heat. If you find yourself lacking in persistence, this weakness may be remedied by building a stronger fire under your desire. Continue to read through the end. Then go back to chapter 2 and start immediately to carry out the instructions given in connection with the 6 steps. The eagerness to which you follow these instructions will indicate clearly how much or how little you really desire to accumulate money. If you find that you are indifferent, you may be sure that you have not yet acquired the money consciousness, which you must possess before you can be sure of accumulating a fortune. Fortunes gravitate to men whose minds have prepared to attract them. Just as surely as a waiter gravitates to the ocean, in this book may be found all the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations which will attract the object of one's desires. If you find you are weak and persistent, send your attention upon the instructions contained in the chapter on power. Surround yourself with a mastermind group, and through the cooperative efforts of members of this group, you can develop persistence. You will find additional instructions for the development of persistence in the chapters on autosuggestion and the subconscious mind. Follow the instructions outlined in these chapters until your habit nature hands over to your subconscious mind a clear picture of the object of your desire. From that point on, you will not be handicapped by lack of persistence. Your subconscious mind works continuously while you are awake and while you are asleep. Spasmodic or occasional effort to apply these rules will be of no value to you. To get results, you must apply all the rules until their application becomes a fixed habit with you. In no other way can you develop the necessary money consciousness. Poverty is attracted to the one whose mind is favorable to it, as money is attracted to him whose mind has been deliberately prepared to attract it. And through the same laws, poverty consciousness will voluntarily seize the mind which it is not occupied with a money consciousness. A poverty consciousness develops without conscious application of habits favorable to it. The money consciousness must be created to order unless one is born with such a consciousness. Catch the full significance of the statements in the preceding paragraph, and you will understand the importance of persistence in the accumulation of a fortune. Without persistence, you will be defeated even before you start. With persistence, you will win. If you have ever experienced a nightmare, you will realize the value of persistence. You are laying in bed, half awake, with a feeling that you are about to smother. You're unable to turn over or to move a single muscle. You realize that you must begin to regain control over your muscles. Through persistent effort of willpower, you finally manage to move your fingers of one hand. By continuing to move your fingers, you extend your control of the muscles of one arm until you can lift it. Then you gain control of the other arm in the same manner. You finally gain control over the muscles of one leg, and then extend it to the other leg. Then, with one supreme effort of will, you regain complete control over your muscular system and snap out of your nightmare. The trick has been turned step by step. You may find it necessary to snap out of your mental inertia through a similar procedure, moving slowly at first, then increasing your speed until you gain complete control over your will. Be persistent no matter how slowly you may at first have to move. With persistence will come success. If you select your mastermind group with care, you will have in it at least one person who will aid you in the development of persistence. Some men have accumulated great fortunes, did so because of necessity. They developed the habit of persistence because they were so closely driven by circumstances that they had to become persistent. There is no substitute for persistence. It cannot be supplemented by any other quality. Remember this, and it will hearten onto you. In the beginning, when the going may seem difficult and slow, those who have accumulated the habit of persistence seem to enjoy insurance against failure. No matter how many times they are defeated, they finally arrive up toward the top of the ladder. Sometimes it appears that there is a hidden guide whose duty is to test men through all sorts of discouraging experiences. Those who pick themselves up after defeat and keep on trying arrive, and the whole world cries, "Bravo! I knew you could do it." The hidden guide lets no one enjoy great achievement without passing the persistence test. Those who can't take it simply do not make the grade. Those who can take it are bountifully rewarded for their persistence. They receive as their compensation whatever goal they are pursuing. That is not all. They receive something infinitely more important than material compensation: the knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. There are exceptions to this rule. A few people know from experience the soundness of persistence. They are the ones who have not accepted defeat as anything more than temporary. They are the ones whose desires are so persistently applied that defeat is finally changed into victory. Who can stand on the sidelines of life, see the overwhelmingly large number who go down in defeat, never to rise again. We see the few who take the punishment of defeat as urges to greater effort. These, fortunately, never learn to accept life's reverse gear. But what we do not see, what most of us never suspect of existing, is a silent but irresistible power which comes to rescue of those who fight on in the faces of discouragement. If we speak of this power at all, we call it persistence, and let it go at that. One thing we know: if one does not possess persistence, one does not achieve noteworthy success in any calling. As these lines are being written, I look up from my work and see before me, less than a block away, the great mysterious Broadway, the graveyard of dead hopes, and the front porch of opportunity. From all over the world, people have come to Broadway, seeking fame, fortune, power, love, whatever it is the human beings call success. Once in a great while, someone steps out from the long procession of seekers, and the world hears that another person has mastered Broadway. But Broadway is not easily nor quickly conquered. She acknowledges talent, recognizes genius, pays off in money, only after one has refused to quit. Then we know he has discovered the secret of how to conquer Broadway. The secret is always inseparably attached to one word: persistence. The secret is told in the struggle of Fannie Hurst, whose persistence conquered the Great White Way. She came to New York in 1915 to convert writing into riches. The conversation did not come quickly, but it came. For 4 years, Miss Hurst learned about the sidewalks of New York from the first-hand experience. She spent her days laboring and her nights hoping. When hope grew dim, she did not say, "All right, Broadway, you win." She said, "Very well, Broadway, you may whip some, but not me. I'm going to force you to give up." One publisher, the Saturday Evening Post, sent her 36 rejection slips before she broke the ice and got a story across. The average writer, like the average in other walks of life, would have given up the job at the first rejection slip came. She pounded the pavement for 4 years to the tune of the publisher's "no," because she was determined to win. Then came the payoff. The spell had been broken. The unseen guy had tested Fannie Hurst, and she could take it. From that time on, publishers made a beaten path to her door. Money came so fast she hardly had time to count. Then the moving picture men discovered her, and money came not in small change, but in floods. The moving picture rights to her latest novel, Great Laughter, brought $8,000, said to be the highest price ever paid for a story before publication. Her royalties from the sale of the book probably will run much higher. Briefly, you have a description of what persistence is capable of achieving. Fannie Hurst is no exception. Wherever men and women accumulate great riches, you may be sure they first acquired persistence. Broadway will give any beggar a cup of coffee and a sandwich, but demands persistence of those who go after the big stakes. Kate Smith will say amen when she reads this. For years she sang without money and without price for any microphone she could reach. Broadway said to her, "Come and get it, if you can take it." She did take it until one happy day Broadway got tired and said, "Aw, you don't know when you're whipped, so name your price and go to work in earnest." Miss Smith named her price. It was plenty. Away up in the figures so high that 1 week's salary is far more than most people make in the whole year. Barely pays to be persistent. And here is the encouraging statement which carries with it a suggestion of great significance. Thousands of singers who excel Kate Smith are walking up and down Broadway looking for a break, without success. Countless others have come and gone. Many of them sang well enough, but they failed to make the grade because they lacked the courage to keep on keeping on, until Broadway became tired of turning them away. Persistence is a state of mind, therefore it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes, among them these: definiteness of purpose, knowing what one wants in the first and perhaps the most important step towards the development of persistence, a strong motive force, one to surmount many difficulties. B, desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and maintain persistence in pursuing the object of intense desire. C, self-reliance. Belief in one's ability to carry on a plan encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence. Self-reliance can be developed through the principle described in a chapter on autosuggestion. D, definiteness of plans. Organized plans, even though they may be weak and entirely impractical, encourage persistence. E, accurate knowledge. Knowing that one's plans are sound based upon experience or observation encourages persistence. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence. F, cooperation. Sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. G, willpower. The habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of a definite purpose leads to persistence. H, habit. Persistence is a direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this. Before leaving the subject of persistence, take inventory of yourself and determine in what particular, if any, you are lacking this essential quality. Measure yourself courageously, point by point, and see how many of the 8 factors of persistence you lack. The analysis may lead to discoveries that will lead to a new grip on yourself. Symptoms of lack of persistence. Here you will find the real enemies which stand between you and your noteworthy achievement. Here you will not only find the symptoms indicating weakness of persistence, but also the deeply seated subconscious causes of this weakness. Study this carefully and face yourself squarely if you really wish to know who you are and what you are capable of doing. These are the weaknesses which must be mastered by all who accumulate riches. 1. Failure to recognize and clearly define exactly what one wants. 2. Procrastination, with or without cause, usually backed up with a formidable array of alibis and excuses. 3. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. 4. Indecision, the habit of passing the buck on all occasions instead of facing issues squarely, also backed by alibis. 5. The habit of relying on alibis instead of creating definite plans for the solutions of problems. 6. Self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affliction, and no hope for those who suffer from it. 7. Indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions, rather than meet opposition and fight it. 8. The habit of blaming others for one's mistakes and accepting unfavorable circumstances being unavoidable. 9. Weakness of desire, due to neglect in those choices of motives that impel action. 10. Willingness, even eagerness, to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. 11. Lack of organized plans, placing in writing where they may be analyzed. 12. The habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. 13. Wishing instead of willing. 14. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. General absence of ambition to be, to do, and to own. 15. Searching for all the shortcuts to riches, trying to get without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling, endeavoring to drive sharp bargains. 16. Fear of criticism. Failure to create plans and to put them into action because of what other people will think, do, or say. This enemy belongs at the head of the list because it generally exists in one's subconscious mind, whereas presence is not recognized. See the 6 basic fears in a later chapter. Let's examine some of the symptoms of the fear of criticism. The majority of people permit relatives, friends, and the public at large to influence them that they cannot live their own lives because they fear criticism. Huge numbers of people make mistakes in marriage, stand by the bargain, or go through life miserable and unhappy because they fear criticism which may follow if they correct the mistake. Anyone who has submitted to this form of fear knows the irreparable damage it does by destroying ambition, self-reliance, and the desire to achieve. Millions of people neglect to acquire belated educations after having left school because they fear criticism. Countless numbers of men and women, both young and old, permit relatives to wreck their lives in the name of duty because they fear criticism. Duty does not require any person to submit to the destruction of his personal ambitions and a right to live his own life in his own way. People refuse to take chances in business because they fear the criticism which may follow if they fail. The fear of criticism in such cases is stronger than the desire for success. Too many people refuse to set high goals for themselves or even neglect selecting a career because they fear the criticism of relatives and, quote, friends, end quote, who say, don't aim so high, people will think you are crazy. When Andrew Carnegie suggested that I devote 20 years to the organization and philosophy of individual achievements, my first impulse of thought was fear of what people might say. The suggestion set up a goal for me, far out of proportion to say any I had ever conceived. As quick as a flash, my mind began to create alibis and excuses, all of them traceable to the inherent fear of criticism. Something inside me said, you can't do it. The job is too big and requires too much time. What will your relatives think of you? How will you earn a living? No one's ever organized a philosophy of success. What right have you to believe you can do it? Who are you, anyway, to aim so high? Remember your humble birth? What do you know about philosophy? People will think you are crazy. And they did. Why hasn't some other person done this before now? These and many other questions flashed in my mind, demanded attention. It seemed as if the whole world had suddenly turned its attention to me with the purpose of ridiculing me into giving up on the desire to carry out Mr. Carnegie's suggestion. I had a fine opportunity then and there to kill off ambition before it gained control of me. Later in life, after having analyzed thousands of people, I discovered that most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. Every minute it lives gives a better chance of surviving. The fear of criticism is the bottom of the destruction of most ideas which never reach the planning and action stage. Many people believe that the material success is a result of favorable breaks. There's an element of ground for the belief, but those depending entirely upon luck are nearly always disappointed, because they may overlook another important factor which must be present before one can be sure of success. It is a knowledge with which favor breaks can be made to order. During Depression, W.C. Fields, the comedian, lost all of his money and found himself without income, without a job, and his means of earning a living no longer existed. Moreover, he was past 60 when many men consider themselves old. He was eager to stage a comeback that he offered to work without pay in his new field, movies. In addition to his other troubles, he fell and injured his neck. To many, that would have been the place to give up and quit. But Field was persistent. He knew that if he carried on, he would get the breaks sooner or later, and he did get them, but not by chance. Marie Dressler found herself down and out, with her money gone, with no job, when she was about 60. She too went after the breaks, and got them. Her persistence brought an astounding triumph late in life, long beyond the age when most men and women are done with ambition to achieve. Eddie Cantor lost his money in 1929 stock crash, but still had his persistence and his courage. With these, plus two prominent eyes, he exploited himself back into an income of $10,000 a week. Verily, if one has persistence, one can get along very well without many other qualities. The only break anyone can afford to rely upon is self-made break. These come through the application of persistence. The starting point is definiteness of purpose. Examine the first 100 people you meet, ask them what they want most in life, and 98 of them will not be able to tell you. If you press them for an answer, some will say security. Many will say money. A few will say happiness. Others will say fame and power. And still others will say social recognition, ease in living, ability to sing, dance or write. But none of them will be able to define these terms or give the slightest indication of a plan by which they hope to attain these vaguely expressed wishes. Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans, backed by definite desires through constant persistence. How to develop persistence. There are 4 simple steps which lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great amount of intelligence, no particular amount of education, and but a little time or effort. The necessary steps are: 1. A definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. 2. A definite plan, expressed in continuous action. 3. A mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including negative suggestions of relatives, friends, and acquaintances. 4. A friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through with both plan and purpose. These 4 steps are essential for success in all walks of life. The entire purpose of the 13 principles of this philosophy is to enable one to take these 4 steps as a matter of habit. These are the steps by which one may control one's economic destiny. These are the steps that lead to freedom and independence of thought. These are the steps that lead to riches in small or great quantities. They lead the way to power, fame, and worldly recognition. They are the 4 steps which guarantee favorable breaks. They are the steps that convert dreams into physical realities. They lead also to the mastery of fear, discouragement, and indifference. There is a magnificent reward for all who learn to take these 4 steps. It is the privilege of writing one's own ticket and making life yield whatever price is asked. I have no way of knowing the facts, but I venture to conjecture that Miss Wallis Simpson's great love for a man who was not accidental, nor the result of favorable breaks alone. There was a burning desire and careful searching at every step of the way. Her first duty was to love. What was the greatest thing on earth? The Master called it love. Not man-made rules, criticism, bitterness, slander, or political marriages, but love. She knew what she wanted, not after she met the Prince of Wales, but long before that. Twice when she failed to find it, and she had the courage to continue her search. To thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night is the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. Her rise from obscurity was of slow, progressive, persistent order, but it was sure. She triumphed over unbelievably long odds, and no matter who you are, or what you might think of Wallis Simpson, or the king who gave up his crown for her love, she is an astounding example of applied persistence, an instructor of the rules of self-determination from whom the world might profitably take lessons. When you think of Wallis Simpson, think of the one who knew what she wanted, and shook the greatest empire on earth to get it. Women who complain that this is a man's world, that women do not have an equal chance to win, owe to themselves to study carefully the life of this unusual woman, who at the age which most women consider old, captured the affection of the most desired bachelor on the entire world. And what of King Edward? What lessons may we learn from his part in the world's greatest drama of recent times? Did he pay too high a price for the affections of the woman of his choice? Surely no one but he can give the correct answer. The rest of us can only conjecture. This much we know. The king came into the world without his own consent. He was born to great riches without requesting them. He was persistently sought in marriage. Politicians and statesmen through Europe tossed dowagers and princesses at his feet. Because he was the firstborn of his parents, he inherited a crown which he did not seek, and perhaps did not desire. For more than 40 years, he was not a free agent, could not live his life in his own way, but had little privacy and finally assumed duties inflicted upon him when he ascended the throne. Some will say, with all these blessings, King Edward should have had found peace of mind, contentment, and joy of living. The truth is that, back of all the privileges of a crown, all the money, the fame, and the power inherited by King Edward, there was an emptiness which could be filled only by love. His greatest desire was for love. Long before he met Wallis Simpson, he doubtlessly felt this great universal emotion tugging at the strings of his heart, beating upon the door of his soul, and crying out for expression. And when he met a kindred spirit, crying out for the same holy privilege of expression, he recognized it, and without fear or apology opened his heart and bade it enter. All the scandal mongers in the world cannot destroy the beauty of this international drama, through which 2 people found love and had the courage to face open criticism, renounce all else to give it holy expression. King Edward's decision to give up the crown of the world's most powerful empire for the privilege of going the remainder of the way through life with a woman of his choice was a decision that required courage. The decision also had a price, but who has the right to say the price was too great? Surely not he who has said, "He among you is without sin, let him cast the first stone." As a suggestion to any evil-minded person who chooses to find fault with the Duke of Windsor, because his desire was for love and not for openly declaring his love for Wallis Simpson and giving up his throne for her. Let it be remembered that the open declaration was not essential. He could have followed the custom of clandestine liaison, which has prevailed in Europe for centuries, without giving up either his throne or the woman of his choice, and there would have been no complaint from either church or laity. But this unusual man was built of sterner stuff. His love was clean, it was deep and sincere, representing the one thing which, above all else, he truly desired, Therefore, he took what he wanted and paid the price demanded. If Europe had blessed with more rulers with the human heart and the traits of honesty of the ex-King Edward, for the past century, the unfortunate hemisphere, now seething with greed, hate, lust, political conveyance, and the threats of war, would have a different and better story to tell. A story in which love and not hate would rule. In the words of Stuart Austin Ware, we raise our cup and drink this toast to ex-King Edward and Wallace Simpson. Blessed is the man who has come to know that our muted thoughts are our sweetest thoughts. Blessed is the man who comes from the blackest depths, can see the luminous figures of love, and seeing, sing, and singing will say, sweeter far than uttered lays are the thoughts I have of you. In these words would we pay tribute to those two people who, more than all others of modern times, have been the victims of criticism, the recipients of abuse, because they found life's greatest treasure and claimed it. Miss Simpson read and approved this analysis. Most of the world will applaud the Duke of Windsor and Wallace Simpson because of their persistence in searching until they found life's greatest reward. All of us can profit by following their example in some of our own search for what it is which we demand in life. What mystical power gives to men of persistence the capacity to master difficulties? Does the quality of persistence set up in one's mind some form of spiritual, mental, or chemical activity which gives one access to supernatural forces? Does infinite intelligence throw itself on the side of the person who still fights on after the battle has been lost, with the whole world on the opposing side? These and many other similar questions have arisen in the mind as I have observed men like Henry Ford, who started at scratch and built an industrial empire of huge proportions with little else in the way of beginning but persistence, or Thomas A. Edison, who with less than 3 months of schooling became the world's leading inventor and converted persistence into the talking machine, the moving picture machine, and the incandescent light, to say nothing of half of 100 other useful inventions. I had the happy privilege of analyzing both Mr. Edison and Mr. Ford year by year over a long period of years, and therefore the opportunity to study them at close range. So I speak from actual knowledge when I say that I have found no quality save persistence in either of them that even remotely suggests the major source of their stupendous achievements. As one makes an impartial study of the prophets, philosophers, miracle men, and religious leaders of the past, one is drawn to the inevitable conclusion that persistence, concentration of effort, and definiteness of purpose were the major sources of their achievements. Consider men of achievement in this modern age of industry and finance, and observe how they have one outstanding trait in common: persistence. So there you have it. Solutions of life. Persistence. Another way that I've been persistent, and I've been 4 years, I've been like having this attitude of gratitude, finding ways to thank people constantly for the deeds that they do. It doesn't matter how menial, it doesn't matter how grandiose, I always find a way to have gratitude towards somebody. And on this Thanksgiving Day, where we try and find different ways to be grateful for our opportunities, as well as for our struggles, as well as for our mediocrity in whatever areas of life, we find gratitude in these things. We're grateful for those things in life as we become more persistent in what we achieve and go after and do. Basically now we just have to focus on the beliefs and change our life. And if you take this challenge on for 90 days, what you're going to find is that persistence gets burned into your soul. And I found some places in my life where I want to get more persistent in ascertaining bigger goals and bigger things in my life. So I'm really hammering this 90-day challenge. And I challenge each and every single one of you to take this on. Not just because it's Thanksgiving, not just because the New Year is coming up, but it's time for us to plant and impregnate seeds in our brains that will blossom into these beautiful achievements of success and happiness. And as we grow, so do people around us grow. And if we evolve, so does the whole world evolve. And it's a really beautiful thing, man. And I just have so much great aspirations in my life. And, with persistence, I can take those aspirations and turn them into reality. So can you. And so can you. And so can you. And the most beautiful thing about this is if you take this challenge on for 90 days, I'm telling you, I've done this with so many different people. I've seen people triple their incomes, double their incomes. Last time I did this, we had 2 of us that had triple our income. There was a number of people that doubled their incomes, and everybody had like a 10+% increase in their income. Extraordinary, considered one group that we were all a part of. I'm going to leave this with you. Here's some solutions for life. Keep the gratitude, find the persistence, do this for 90 days, and watch your life change. My name is Kirk Tompkins, and remember, if a thing is humanly possible, consider it to be within your reach. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.